To finish this off, I'm going to add my fresh herb garnishes. This is every chef's secret. Fresh herbs, edible flowers or microgreens round off a dish, give it some colour and hide any imperfections. Looking at a plated meal like this, you might think it came together by chance, but that isn't the case. Certain concepts and ideas are always kept in mind during the planning, cooking and plating process of every beautifully plated meal. Today I'm going to explain 5 things I keep in mind when creating a plated meal like this. I hope you can take these ideas and apply them when you're planning your next plated meal. I actually have a bonus tip, so make sure you watch until the end. Let's take a step back and rewind. To showcase these ideas, we're using a fennel and raisin pork fillet with a light ginger and kumara or sweet potato puree. This video isn't so much about how to cook this specific dish, but it will work well to demonstrate these ideas. The first tip I want to talk about is adding flavour and colour to your dish. Usually you'd choose the main component of your dish first. In this case, I'm using a pork fillet with Worcestershire sauce, fennel seeds, whole grain mustard and fresh thyme. These are all complementary flavours when combined with pork. After searing it off in a hot pan, I like to finish cooking it in the oven. Once you've decided on the main component, then you need to think about what other accompaniments you can put with it. This is where adding flavour and colour come into play. What other things can I add to the dish that will go with the pork? What will add the best flavours? What colours will these bring? Will these additions make it look appealing and add an extra dimension of flavour? For my dish, I decided to make a kumara puree to go with the pork because they work well together. So while creating the kumara puree, I considered ingredients that would complement that too. I decided to add an onion and garlic for flavour and a little apple and fresh ginger to help balance the richness of the pork. Although this puree has a perfect flavour profile, it unfortunately has a similar colour to the pork, which may not be visually appealing. To overcome this, serving the dish on a black plate could help create some contrast. I'll talk more about this later on in the video. Look at that stark colour contrast. The addition of green beans to this not only adds another colourful vegetable to the dish, but it acts as a base for the pork to sit on. This will stop any sauce pooling around the pork, which doesn't always look that great. The second tip is to think about how you're going to arrange the main component of the dish. It's the star of the dish, so its position is important. You want it to stand out and be beautifully accompanied by the other components. For this dish today, I'm going to cut the pork fillet into little slices and fan it out along the green beans. Cutting it exposes some of the central colours and allows me to fan it out to create some dimension and intrigue. Fanning the meat out also makes it appear like there's more of it. Remember to plate in odd numbers where possible. Don't put 4 pieces of meat on, it just doesn't look as pleasing to the eye as 3 or 5 pieces do. See how the pork fillet, the main component of the dish, is now the central focal point, accompanied by the kumara puree and a hint of green beans. This dish still needs a bit more though, so on to the next tip. Remember the sauce. A complementary sauce brings the dish together. Making a sauce from the meat juices means it'll be a perfect match. Here I'm adding some aromatics, finely diced onion, garlic and fresh thyme to the pan I seared the meat in. Once it's softened, you can deglaze the pan. I used white wine to do this. Then add in your stock and let it reduce. To this specific sauce, I also added raisins to add a fruity flavour and finished it with some cream. I always like to sauce the meat first, Because the sauce is derived from the meat juices, they work together and are meant to be eaten together. After that, if you have some extra sauce, you can then use this to sauce the plate and add more visual appeal. The fourth tip is to add texture. Having different textures on a plate makes the meal so much more sophisticated. Combining something smooth with something crunchy really makes a meal so nice to eat. This dish, with its smooth and creamy nature, can be elevated with the addition of crispy bacon bits. The crunchy bacon complements the melt-in-your-mouth sensation of the pork and soft kumara puree. Give it a try. Next time you're enjoying a soft dish, consider adding a complementary flavour with a crunchy texture and see how it magically enhances your dining experience. The last tip is to add a finishing touch or garnish. The garnish brings a dish to life, adds colour, hides imperfections, balances out the plate and completes it. Without a garnish, the plate can feel like it's lacking something. I'm using some fresh flat leaf parsley, or you could use microgreens here too. I've also got some fresh thyme leaves. There's already some in the sauce and on the meat, so adding a few extra leaves will be complementary. And to add a pop of vibrant colour, I've included some nasturtium flowers. The garnish is the perfect finishing touch that takes this dish to the next level. I had enough food for 2 portions of this dish, so I decided to plate the second portion on a light coloured plate. I actually didn't think it would look that great, since the puree and the sauce are both light in colour. My bonus tip is to think about layering, so let's keep that in mind as we plate this up. Building the dish up layer by layer is a logical way of creating height and blending the components. The layers create depth and make it pleasing to the eye. Funnily enough, I actually quite like how it looks on this plate. I think because the darker bits of the sauce tie in with the brown lines around the rim of the plate. I always say plating is an art, so make sure you let your artistic juices flow. You might be surprised by what you come up with next. Garnishing is such an easy way to elevate your dish. If you want to find out some more great garnishing ideas, head on over to this video where I talk about why garnishing is the most important step to better tasting food. If you do want to make this dish exactly as I have, the full recipe is in my free newsletter. There's a link in the description below. See you next time!